Making here is gonna be a frittata. And what a frittata is, it's just like an omelet, but it comes in like a pizza form. Usually you do it in a skillet like this one, which I'm gonna be using, and it's just really fluffy, and I'll show you the ingredients we're gonna be using. I just have some eggs right here, just a dash of milk,
some peppers. I have some, what do I have? I have paprika, I have some cayenne pepper, some freshly ground black pepper, and then like a combination of spices, just like a little bit of garlic, a little bit of onion.
But you could use any combination of spices you like in your omelet, same you would use here. So I have 6 eggs, I have some chopped Italian, kind of like Italian sausage, some cheddar cheese, and some red peppers, caramelized onions, and potatoes. This is a recipe where you just basically put anything in there and it'll work fine, customizable to your taste. But like I said, this is for something you have on hand, and this is just what happens to be what I have on hand. It's a really easy recipe. I'm gonna go ahead and start my skillet over here. It's just a stainless steel, like a saute pan. That's completely fine because it's not gonna stick to it. And what I'm gonna do first is I'll just put a little bit of oil in here as it heats, because I'm gonna heat all my ingredients thoroughly before I add the eggs. So you just need very little bit at this point, because we're gonna add more later. Okay, now you could use as many eggs as you want. You can make this as big or small as you want. After you make it the first time, you'll kind of get an idea of what they're supposed to, what it's gonna look like. So just go ahead, put use all your eggs. Going to add just a splash of milk or cream, any kind of milk, really, whatever you have is completely fine. And then I'm just going to beat them really well. And then I'm just gonna add all my spices in. And I'm just going to set it aside for now. Put that right here. My skillet is heating. I'm just going to chop up my sausage. So I have most of them chopped up. I basically just have home, it's just cooked sausage from the store. And I just chop it up kind of at a diagonal, because you don't want to use a lot, but you want to make sure that it's in at least every bite. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add this, which is just some potatoes, some red bell pepper, and some caramelized onions. It smells great already. Combination of bell peppers and onions and potatoes really is just an amazing combination. And then you add some Italian sausage or some breakfast sausage, and the smell, like, you'll go crazy. You just want to eat it all day, every day, but don't. So I'm just gonna heat this all the way through. And then in about a minute, it should be done, and I'll add the sausage. And then we're going to add the rest of our ingredients, and I'm just going to add my chopped up sausage and heat that all the way through. And then while I'm doing that, on one side of the skillet, because they absorb so much oil or whatever fat you use, and I use half olive oil, half vegetable oil. You could use whatever you want. But what really makes this dish, what really brings it together, I use just a little bit of butter, and that's just a cube of butter. and you want to brown that butter before you add the eggs. So I'm just gonna brown it on this side as much as I can. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be perfect, because this is really just to throw it together and eat it kind of dish. And you could totally leave the butter out. You could use just oil. That's completely up to you, and that's the beauty of recipes. You could customize it to whatever your heart desires. Okay, so our butter is lightly toasted, and that's what we're looking for. We don't want to get it too dark. We're just going to mix the rest of the ingredients really quickly. And then we're just going to add in our egg mixture. So just go ahead and add it all in. And it's totally okay to mix it at this point. Now, I also want to bring to your attention that although the ingredients in here might already be salted, you might need to add a little bit of salt, and I know I'm going to need to, so I'm just going to grind some salt in. And that's just very little bit, just so it'll give it some flavor, because you definitely don't want it to be bland. But be careful, because that sausage is always too salty, or if you use bacon. So just be careful when you add that salt. So I'm just going to kind of mix it around. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add cilantro in mine. I'm just adding the cheese on top now, because when we broil this, it's gonna really melt. It's gonna be really good, and it's gonna get really brown. And who doesn't like melted cheese? Just make sure you use a pan that is heat resistant, unless you don't want to broil it at all, or unless you plan on flipping it over, which it's easier to broil it, but if you can flip it, go ahead and do that. Okay, so remove the lid, and as you can see, all the cheese has melted. It's kind of just covered the entire surface, and it's bubbling. The egg pretty much should be cooked all the way through at this point, and we're just gonna put it under a broiler for a few minutes, just so it'll kind of like, I guess the cheese toasts and melts a little bit more and just becomes brown and bubbly. I mean, it's already bubbly, you can see it. But it becomes brown and bubbly, and it really is just delicious. So I'm gonna go put this under the broiler, maybe for 5 minutes, maybe less. Keep an eye on it. You really, really, really don't wanna let this burn. It'll be a waste. And I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, so we have our frittata, and this is what it looks like. I took it out, I let it sit for a minute. It's really hot, really bubbling, so you need to be very careful.